Good afternoon, members of Parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, and members of the media. Welcome to this meeting of the Committee Country Expenditures number 2 of today, Tuesday, March 10th, 2026. We have established a quorum of 5 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. You may be seated. I have not received any notice of absence from any of the remaining members of this committee, nor have I received any notice of lateness. Before we proceed with the agenda points, are there any notifications from any of the members of this committee or MPs? I see none. We move. Oh, I'm so sorry, MP Lewis. My apologies. You have the floor.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair Lady. Good afternoon to my colleagues here. I would just like to give my public condolences to the family of Dr. Pedro Arundel and Iris Arundel and the rest of their family on the passing of their mom. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Lewis. Are there any other MPs with notifications? I see none. We will proceed to the agenda points for this meeting, which are agenda point number 1, incoming documents. Agenda point number 2, discussion on letter received from the General Audit Chamber with a proposed list of audit reports for parliamentary discussions. We go over to agenda point number 1. All members have received a list of incoming documents and the proposals for further handling, which can be found on IS/001-550. Are there any comments or proposals on the list as presented? Just as a reminder, then the list, I'm not sure if the members had an opportunity yet to see it, but the 2 incoming documents refer to the letter from MP Arian to the General Audit Chamber in reference to a motion of Parliament requesting the Chamber to review the public funding support to the Soul Beach event. A lot of time has passed since we had a meeting, which is why I needed to go over the details of these letters so that it could refresh our memory a little bit. And then the second one, this MP Arian's letter was from 27th of October, 2025. The second letter is from the 21st of November, 2025, and it is the audit on the process of building permits. So if no members of the committee or members of Parliament have any comments, then I will proceed. We go over to agenda point number 2, discussion on letter received from the General Audit Chamber with a proposed list of audit reports for parliamentary discussions. You could find this IS/583/2025-2026, dated January 21st, 2026. On January 21st, 2026, Parliament received a list of audit reports that the Board of the Audit Chamber deems still relevant for parliamentary discussion. This list was presented upon request of the President of Parliament and the Chair Lady of the Committee of Country Expenditures. In its letter, the Audit Chamber informed Parliament that based on their relevance to parliamentary oversight, responsibilities, their financial or systemic impact, and the recurring nature of several findings affecting governance and public administration, the following reports are being proposed for parliamentary discussion. Assessment of St. Martin's climate response, audit report on the building permit process covering the period 2020 to 2024, the audit of public sector travel and parliamentary membership, performance audits on the protection of personal data, audit on the reliability of official statistics, medical assistance under pressure, management, communication, and compliance, review of allocation of motor vehicle tax revenues for the period 2022 to 2024, review of government office housing policy, audit into the 2022 annual financial statements of St. Martin, policy on parliamentary requests to conduct inquiries, and the progress meter, which is a policy instrument. This document is registered as incoming document IS/583/2025-2026, and you can find this on the Parliament General Team folder section. It is important to note here that based on a meeting held between the Board of the Audit Chamber, the President of Parliament, and the Chairperson of the committee, it has been agreed that country expenditure meetings or the CLU committee meetings going forward, and I know one MP in particular will be very happy to hear this, will take place in an open setting, unless there is a topic that is deemed sensitive that calls for a closed-door meeting. Previously, all of the reports, when they are presented to us, have always been done in a closed-door setting, even though the reports are always shared publicly, whether it's on a website or via WhatsApp or different social mediums. Does any member of Parliament have any comments regarding this new way of working for our CLU meetings going forward? I see MP Irian has a question. MP Janssen, MP Veronica Janssen was the first to press the button. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And good afternoon. Good afternoon to, to my colleagues. Madam Chair, my question was, seeing that the list is quite long, it's quite extensive of meetings that we should have with Parliament, I was wondering if we could maybe do them by twos, or at least, or sometimes there are maybe 2 or 3 subject matters that fit in the same kind of subject. If we could do more than one at a time. That's my question.
Thank you, MP Janssen Webster. For some of the reports from the Audit Chamber are like quick scans, very, very short reports. So it would be efficient that we can combine more than one if the topics are a little bit more related, but it would be a better use of our time when we're meeting with the Audit Chamber. We also discussed this with Chair Lady during the meetings of whether or not the way of working of making it more efficient and effective for discussion purposes. And we're open to doing that, but then we will have to, that's part of our discussion here today, is to look at the list that was given to us for us to call our meetings for the remainder of this parliamentary term. And I'm not sure if all of the members have had a chance to review them as well, because those reports come into us, but they're also available online. This is exactly the purpose of it. I can resend the list again. That way you all can review it. We can take a 5-minute break, and then maybe today we can determine which ones are priority for us, because the list that I read off consists of 11 reports. Some of them are very, very small. The reports regarding public sector travel, motor vehicle tax revenues, the 2022's, for instance, annual financial statements, and the medical assistance under pressure. Off the top of my head, those are topics that are probably more likely to be discussed in an individual setting because of how detailed those reports are. Everything else could be something that we can combine together, or maybe even when you look at the St. Martin's climate response, it's more informative of it. It doesn't, you don't really, it's about future sort of planning, as opposed to you're seeing how we are going to use that knowledge in our budget debate or holding the Council of Ministers accountable for the way that they are spending money and whether or not their procedures are working, whether they're following the legislation, for instance, with the motor vehicle tax, with the road tax fund, all of this. So if we need to take a few minutes break, I'm more than willing to do that for us to discuss that off air. That way we can come up with a plan of what we think is priority, because part of the meeting today is, yes, updating you with the good news that we are going to have these meetings on public reports in a public setting. And then also to come up with what our priority is in terms of what meetings we want to have first. Because we definitely can't break this list down in 3 meetings, but we need to also provide our priority of which one we want to discuss first with them so that we can actually start confirming the dates, scheduling the dates with the audit chamber. Because between our schedule and theirs, it's very difficult to do so. And one of the things that we were striving for every parliamentary term is to have at least 3 to 4 meetings at minimum. And the majority of those meetings will indeed cover the big ticket items such as medical assistance under pressure, motor vehicle tax, the housing policy, which is about exactly what was discussed in the previous budget debate, about all of the leased properties of government. So I see, before we go to a break, I see MP Irian would like the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon to all my colleagues. So I tend to agree with the MP VJ Webster. I think, sorry if I may, Veronica Janssen Webster. I do believe that we could put some of the items together. And why? So like you mentioned, that's not the quick scans. I think we could do 3 of those together. And why? Because we're not going to sit down here when the audit chamber comes and ask them more questions about the report, because the data is there. We're now supposed to take this data as MPs and then decide what we want to do in terms of government. So I do believe that we don't need to have, and the reality is if you have 11 meetings for this year, I just don't see that happening. I think that's unrealistic. I just don't see it happening. I would really prefer to say, listen, we have a cap. This topic is a half an hour. The other topic is a half an hour. We got to figure out how we can deal with that. And then we take the information from there, make a report out of it, and then we either send to a CC or we send questions directly to the relevant minister on how we want to approach it. I do think there are a couple items that we really need to dig deeper into. One will be the personal data. Parliament this year, we're talking about AI, etc., and personal data becomes an issue. Even when it comes, I think 2 years ago, we already had a meeting already in Parliament regarding even, let's say, the police cameras, etc., and no legislation to back these things up. So privacy concerns. So I think that seeing the theme of government, seeing the theme of Parliament, that's already something that we have to put up there. Statistics, things is important. We all talk about data. But again, we're not going to be questioning them. Because they're providing data, we're only going to ask them questions based on the data that they provided. And then from there, we go on to the relevant ministers. And I think probably the most important one for me would be the progress meter. And so that's where we get to ask them questions in particular, because that's about them. And so that would be, for me, high in the agenda: the progress meter, the personal data, the statistics, and the 2 other items. And again, only because it came up recently by the Minister of Finance, the number plates, the stickers, and then the medical data, again, because we have now also the Ombudsman report. I saw something from the Minister Bruch, VSR. So we kind of tie all these things in, because I saw that the Up and Now faction called a meeting regarding the hospital and health, I believe. So if you could kind of just start keeping these meetings close to each other, now that we have one in medical in May, another one in September. So that would be my idea, that we kind of keep these topics close to the relevant ones that's already happening. Housing policy, we had a meeting already on it. The Minister of Finance, again, mentioned the vehicle tax, etc. That'd be my idea when we go to break, at least then.
Thank you, MP Irian. And you basically described our discussion with them of how to move forward. I just gave examples of which reports were bigger, but that's exactly our purpose. And then just to also reiterate what you said, the way of working is for us to prepare with the reports that we have already from them, call them into a meeting, they discuss it with us, we go over it, and then the intention is for us to use those reports to hold the Council of Ministers accountable so that we could actually have a measurement of where we are with it. So it's not something to sort of say, oh, I'm going to chastise you over this, but it's a guideline for us too of where should we be, because this is the expert doing the report for us. So it's our guideline of if this policy exists and we're missing this portion, what is our role in that? And where does Parliament need to step in order to assist the Council of Ministers, the executive branch of it? And that's part of the reason of us discussing open meetings, so that we also have, the public also has access to the knowledge that we are receiving from the General Audit Chamber when we're discussing it, because even though these reports are all public on their website, persons won't go to them unless we're having these meetings. So it's important for us to understand our role as well in this sort of public setting, that the rest of the community understands what we're doing here and how we're doing our job, and what the important role is of the committee country expenditures, especially when you start combining this with the meeting of budgets. Because you also said one of the ways that we can improve our way of working as Parliament is, well, if we're going to review a report on the medical system being under pressure, then why aren't we prepping it this way? The rest of the members of Parliament can come in. We do indeed end up moving on to a CC. That's exactly the way that we are trying to work and improve our way of working. So I appreciate you saying that. With that, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. Is that sufficient? Okay, fine. Well, we'll take a 10-minute break. 10-minute break. Meeting adjourned for 10 minutes. welcome back to this Committee of Country Expenditures. After discussion with the members and reviewing the list or the suggested list of pending reports from the General Audit Chamber, one of the items that we reviewed is to go over the types of audits that we receive from the General Audit Chamber that they perform. And just as a brief summary, some of those are compliance audit, performance audit, mini audits, and focus audits. So our suggestion here, or that based on our discussion, it was suggested for us to look at several of, like, so we were going to combine the performance audit together, and just to state it here for reporting purposes, in order to make the process more efficient for ourselves, within the list that we discussed previously, the performance audits from this list will be a performance audit on the report of the building process, the building permit process. The next performance audit is the protection of personal data, and then the following performance audit is the audit on the reliability of official statistics. So my proposal to the members and non-members would be for us to combine those 3 performance audits together for the General Audit Chamber to come in and present that to us. And the next combination would be to look at the audit of public sector travel and parliamentary memberships, along with the medical assistance under pressure management, communication, and compliance, since those are audits that have a similar sort of research and way of working for them to report. That's my suggestion. The following one is, there are also reviews, and there's the review of allocation of motor vehicle tax revenues, as well as the review of government housing policy. The suggestion is to combine those together. There is one pending, which is big on its own, which is the audit into the 2022 annual financial statements of St. Martin. And that's always a meeting that's a lot of details. So my suggestion would be to have that on its own. In the list that we received from the General Audit Chamber in the pending reports, there are some new concepts that they are now doing, which is looking at policies, looking at the progress meter, a measurement tool that we can use, and then also looking at the assessment of St. Martin's climate response. And then they also have something new that they are combining with this scanner, this climate scanner. Now, because these are newer reports that we're not familiar with based on the actual audits of compliance or whether or not the government is following the process in accordance with legislation, my last suggestion then would be for the General Audit Chamber, or maybe it's not even necessary, but just for the purpose of us completing this meeting today and having a conclusion, would be for us to review the assessment of St. Martin's climate response, along with the policy on parliamentary requests to conduct inquiries, and the progress meter, which is the policy instrument, as explained by Chair Lady during our break, that we can combine these together so that we use that to understand these new reporting tools that are coming through from the General Audit Chamber. So now, with that being said, I look to the members of the committee to see if you have any comments or suggestions about this, because I think this focuses on what MP Johnson-Webster and MP Irian said about making the process more efficient and not having 11 meetings for the remainder of the year, and actually cutting it down to about 4, which is manageable for all of us, as well as the General Audit Chamber. Nada? Oh, MP Irian?
Yes, thank you. So I agree with the combination. So the focus, mini compliance and the general. Just want to be clear. So on the first 2, so the first one, I believe, the first suggestion was which one? Is that an APS one?
No, the first it's not. This is not in order of
I thought it was the order.
meetings.
Okay.
It's not in order of the meetings. It was
Okay.
more of for all the members to be aware of the different audits that the General Audit Chamber perform, and then combining those types of audits for the efficiency of our meeting. So the first suggestion, which doesn't mean that it has to be the first meeting, will be to combine the performance audits of the building permit process, the protection of personal data, and the audit on the reliability of official statistics. So it's more of whether or not the members agree that we're going to combine it that way, per my suggestion. Now, if you look at the list, you can also decide right now as a committee which one is priority, and we send that on to the General Audit Chamber as this is the most important one that we want to talk about today. And then I'm not offering a suggestion, but based on the list, we also do have audit into the 2022 annual financial statements of St. Martin, which is a nice prep because of what's coming up then with budgets. So it's more of, that's how my thought process will go with it. That's a big one. I believe all the other reports that we have can be combined together, except the 2022 annual financial statements. On this list, we do not have the we do not have the list of APS because we covered that before. But if there's a new one up, then when it comes up, then we can discuss that be prioritized as well over any one of these. But then it would require us to come back to the committee and decide on that.
Okay, so to be clear, I agree with the combining of the topics. And then I also like the idea then of the first ones, I believe, the one protection of data, that combination. I think that's a good one to put first. And then the idea, so my idea would be the one for the annual for the financial statements, maybe to do that, because I like what you said, in preparation for budget, so maybe that one goes around May. Then we have budget May, June, so maybe if we get that one in April or May, then we know from that it leads into budget. And I know I don't have a say as a vote, but that's my suggestion.
Thank you so much, MP Arian. We appreciate your recommendations and your suggestions as a non-member who is here today of the Committee of Country Expenditures. MP Westcott Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. My reaction to your proposal is somewhat in line with MP Arian's suggestion. However, I don't know if we would want to hold the financial report of 2022 of the country St. Martin for down in later April towards May. I think we should get the discussion going on that as soon as we can. With respect to the combination, yeah, I can definitely agree with what you put forward, but I would say let us try to get the financial report 2022 going for discussion with the General Audit Chamber as soon as we can, of course, also with their cooperation. Thank you, Madam Chair. Other than that, yeah, I can agree with the way that you have combined the reports and the sequence that you sort of proposed to be followed.
Thank you so much, MP Westcott Williams. Then I'm going to look at the members of the committee to see if anyone has any objections to that proposal. And I agree that our first meeting that we're going to schedule then will be to review the financial statements of Country St. Martin for 2022. I see no comments, so, oh, sorry, MP Janssen-Webster, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with scheduling the financial statements first. And I also agree with the manner in which you have divided up the other reports. Thank you.
While we're here, because I know that there was a couple of members that actually had more interest into the official statistics and personal data and the building permit process performance audits. Is everyone okay with us choosing that as the second one, as the second meeting to be held? MP Lacruz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. I'm watching here the review of the allocation of motor vehicle tax revenue, seeing that is something that is taking place now, something that is vigilant now also in the community, and the state of our deplored state of the streets. I think that that would be something that we definitely should get on to as soon as possible. So I don't know under which category that one would fall, but that is something that I think.
Thank you very much, MP Lacruz. I had the review of allocation of motor vehicle tax revenues. combined with the review of government office housing policy, and we can take your suggestion and put that as our second meeting to be held. As our second. In terms of the order of preference, the first one that we're going to suggest to the Audit Chamber is going to be the financial statements 2022. The second one, based on what you are requesting now, because of the current, that it's currently going on right now, that we change our performance audit from being the original number 2 to the review of allocation of motor vehicle tax, along with the combining the other review audit of the government office housing policy. So the proposal right now to the rest of the members of this committee is for us to put this item, allocation of motor vehicle tax and office housing policy, as our number 2 meeting to be held with the Committee of Country Expenditures. MP Janssen Webster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can agree to having those meetings as you described just now as the second option. Why? Because they also have relevance to the budget. And so once we handle the financial statements and we handle this, I think that we have more oversight when we're dealing with the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Janssen Webster. MP Westcott Williams, you have the floor.
Yes, yes, thank you once again, Madam Chair Lady. In fact, hearing my colleague, MP La Cruz, I'm wondering if where the report on the road fund is concerned, if we can just send, like right now, based on this committee meeting, and to get an update from government, because that matter is pretty straightforward. There is a dormant law establishing a road fund. However, for obvious reasons, this has not yet been activated. Recently, we would have heard the minister's state, for example. I saw a statement by the Minister of Romy that this road fund will be put into effect in 2027. So to have a discussion, so we should find out, is that really so? Because to have a discussion about the fact that there should be a road fund based on the law, a law that is lying there, and the government plans to put it into effect in 2027. As far as I'm concerned, there's no really further debate to have on it, but to ask government, are you going to put this into effect? Because government could also make a choice to annul that particular law, because one of the holdbacks until now has been that that law speaks to all of the revenue from the vehicle tax to go into the road fund. Maybe, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I saw the minister state it will go into effect, I believe, 2027, but maybe the government might want to consider that a percentage of the vehicle tax to keep a little bit in the budget, which has been one of the holdbacks until now for implementing it. So right now, I don't see, but that's just me personal, I don't see a further debate with having to hear again from the General Audit Chamber, but you have the law. Why not? Mm-hmm. Why is it not put into effect? But rather for us to get an update from the government as to what they're going to do. And then we can sort of pull the line through that one until we get an answer. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. I see MP Arian would like the floor. You have the floor.
Thank you. So I agree with Madam Chair, but I agree with MP Sarah Scott Williams regarding not going back to Audit Chamber on that topic, but actually pulling the government in because of the what was mentioned in press briefing and in press by the Minister of Romy. But in addition to the Minister of Romy, the Minister of Finance also mentioned that the road fund will be established, and she did. The Minister of Finance didn't mention the date, but the Minister of Romy did mention the date, 2027. But also today, the Audit Chamber also has a press release out saying that the Minister of Romy stated that the General Audit Chamber responded positively to the road fund proposal. We would like to clarify that the Audit Chamber does not give opinions on policy decisions. In our Audit 2024 audit, we noted that the law requires a road fund and recommended either following the law or repealing it. So the government had a decision to make. So obviously, based on what the minister said, the government made a decision, I guess, I'm assuming. We also pointed out the risks related to earmarking tax money. Better roads will require more than a legal structure. It will also require strong financial management, transparency, etc., accountability for how taxpayers' money is used. So we have the Council of Ministers stating that next year we will have the road fund implemented, so they'll enact the law. We have MP Westcott Williams saying now that, hey, but maybe we should do a percentage, and I think it's logical because we know that the government is cash-strapped, but that will also require an amendment of a law, so that has to still come back to Parliament. So I agree, we have to get some update from government because we can't just say things out there. We have, for the law to be implemented, there's an amendment to happen, we need CCs, et cetera, et cetera. So I agree with that we don't have to go back to our chamber for that one, but we do need to hear from the government if this, in fact, will be in 2027, and how they plan to supplement the rest of the budget with this money going to the road fund. And there's a lot of other stuff too questions I have. Will the road fund be its own entity? What kind of entity, et cetera, et cetera. So I agree with the MP that this is a very pertinent topic, but then dealing with the government, because we have the facts already since 2024.
I see MP La Cruz has requested the floor regarding the same topic. MP La Cruz, okay. You have the floor, MP.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and MP Artwell, first me on it, because I think getting the plan in place or activated, the law activated in January is one, but how are we going to replenish those funds that no longer will be available to the other ministries, seeing that we are still waiting for revenue-generating measures, new revenue-generating measures from the government. So I concur with MP Westcott that is definitely a meeting that should be held sooner than later, and in preparation for the minister's plan for 2027, if that is definitely what it should be. So I think that plan should not come without anything else that has to do with financials and revenue-generating measures from government. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP La Cruz. May I make a suggestion to the members then, because after taking into consideration MP Irian and MP La Cruz's suggestion regarding this motor vehicle tax allocation and the link with the road fund, that perhaps we have a meeting of CLU, but on a different date to discuss our way forward with that topic. Because then if we all agree here that we're going to eliminate this from a presentation from the General Audit Chamber, and then we're going to decide amongst ourselves, then as a Committee of Country Expenditures, to then send our communication on to the minister. Can I make that suggestion then, that we decide on doing that in a follow-up meeting? Or we could do it now if you would like. We could do it now. Absolutely, we can do it now. So what exactly, is there any MP that would then like to make any additional statements other than what was shared? MP La Cruz?
So to understand you clearly, Madam Chair Lady, the idea is that we will send questions to the minister, because that I'm not for. I would rather the minister comes in, gives us an explanation of how he's going to activate it, his whole plan, and then we ask him questions. Because that way, we're not going to create questions that maybe he already has worked out. Or it takes another 6, 8, 12 weeks to receive that information. So if we want to be efficient, I think requesting a meeting as soon as possible with the minister, seeing that it is something going on now, he comes, gives a presentation, how he's going to activate it, why he decided to activate it, how he's going to replenish the funds in the budget, and maybe after that we might not have any questions at all. But I think honoring him the opportunity to come before anything else, I think would be a better way to go. That's my opinion. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP La Cruz. MP Irian, you have the floor.
So typically, I would have said to send the questions to the minister as was suggested, but based on the point from MP La Cruz, and only because I feel like it happens too much, that the ministers announce things publicly and not light things, very heavy things, without addressing Parliament. So not telling Parliament, hey, this is what we plan to do, or even a one-page summary, or just some type of update to the body that holds you accountable, right? So then in that case, I do agree that since you already announced it in press briefing and in articles, that and we are third tier, then come to Parliament and bring a presentation urgently and explain, and maybe the Minister of Finance explain how this is going to work, right? The timeline for it being implemented. What are the effects on the different ministries? Because they have to be prepared now too, because I'm sure they're going to have a shortfall of at least 9 million guilders within the government, and we haven't had any extra revenue generating measures because most of those are also legislation. So the one for the health levy, et cetera, those haven't come to Parliament as yet. So we can't assume that those are going to be filling the gaps for 2027 unless they say. So in that case, I do agree. Since the minister already has said it publicly, and I would prefer the minister with the Minister of Finance to do a presentation on it.
Thank you, MP Irian. Before I pass the floor to MP Westcott Williams, I just want to state then for the record that and then I could just see it by looking at the members, because we are a small committee. I'm going to eliminate this review of the allocation of motor vehicle tax revenues from the presentation that we would require of the General Audit Chamber. So I'm just saying that for the record, and then just checking all the members that we're in agreement to proceed that way. So that is done. We're going to remove that from there. And then MP Westcott Williams, thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair Lady. I can understand my colleagues who spoke before me with respect to calling in the minister, and I don't necessarily have a problem with doing that, although I believe that given the very specific nature of this topic, our questions could be direct, and we don't need 100 questions, in my opinion, again. But if we are going to agree or decide for the minister to be present, I still would ask that questions be sent to him ahead of time. Why? Because I don't want the minister to come here to talk about the road fund, and then we ask, but how are you going to deal with the fact that that is then money that comes out of the budget, and then that's, well, I have to come back because I did not take that into consideration. I just come to tell you I am going to put it into effect on the 1st of January 2027. So in any case, I think very specific questions need to be asked to the minister, even if we say, well, in answering, come in here and make your presentation. I don't have an issue with that per se.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. And I wanted to give you, MP Westcott Williams, an opportunity to make your point so I could have all of the similar comments or reactions from the members of Parliament together. But my suggestion was going to be this. One of the way of workings of this committee is for us to really use the information that we get from the report of the General Audit Chamber to either get more information, get more knowledge for ourselves in our work, in our accountability role for how we interact with the Council of Ministers, have the Audit Chamber come in here, teach us to look or educate us to look at different ways of how financing is done, how the government is spending their money. That's why we're called country expenditures. What I would like to avoid as this committee is having it be an extension of a CC or OVE, a public meeting where we call in ministers for the hot topic items, even though we have a right to do that. And I will say, in the defense of my statement now, we have previously had the Minister of Finance here to go over the tax parts of when there was errors, tax assessments. So based on the General Audit Chamber report of the tax assessments, where they were automated tax assessment going to individuals, and they were inaccurate and causing a lot of strife. It was also something, just like MP La Cruz pointed out, a hot topic item because you had a lot of senior citizens reacting in a very nervous and scared and manner because of the errors that were being done in the tax assessments. So using the tax assessment report and presentation from the General Audit Chamber, the Minister of Finance came in here and then gave her presentation with her support staff. So while I understand exactly that eventually we may have to go there with potentially inviting the minister in charge of road tax and would be the Minister of Rami, I would like to offer the suggestion after explaining the way of working, the improved way of working, because I look at the members of this committee as sort of, setting the standard of using the reports from our councils to actually level up the way that we work as a parliament. So the suggestion here now would be if we can start this, and that's why I made the earlier suggestion that perhaps the committee can meet or to discuss the road fund report that we had already gotten, the audit from the General Audit Chamber, as well as the allocation of the tax, the road tax, because of the road fund. And then we prepare together as a committee those specific questions to the minister. We decide as a committee to give a timeline, for a fair timeline for response from the minister. And if we do not get that response, then we escalate it to requesting the minister to come in. But we had already done the work ourselves to go over those reports, and we're prepared for anything after that. So that is my suggestion. MP La Cruz.
So, Madam Chair Lady, the idea is for us to sit down, we go, put some questions together, we send them to the minister with a specific timeline on when he will return or when we will get those answers. If we don't get those answers on time, then we call a meeting. Because, I don't know, I understand the whole idea of putting the questions together to guide the minister, but I must disagree with MP Westcott when it comes to the minister cannot blur out it's going to be activated on the 1st of January 2027 and not have a plan worked out to cover those holes. That would be something very irresponsible to do. So I don't expect to have to ask him where that comes from. In his presentation, that should be put together. But again, that is me. I do agree, if we want, we could put questions together and send it to the minister and tell him, hey, we will want a presentation and please cover these points in your presentation. Because I think it's not only important for us to understand, but the public also on how these matters are being handled. That is my suggestion. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP La Cruz. Before I go on to MP Arian, I just want to reiterate that we've come to this discussion on how to approach it because of a list from the General Audit Chamber, which is the starting point for us. So the country expenditures is using the work of the Audit Chamber to decide on how we move forward. And then if our discussion and what we find out in here, our findings from these reports, exactly like the discussion we're having today, if that needs to lead to something that needs to be escalated, then I suggest we have those tools available to us, which means that it's either a CC and it moves from this committee meeting, which is very specific in nature. Our work here is reviewing the General Audit Chamber reports to come to if I could give you the trajectory, we start off small here with General Audit Chamber reports. From those reports, it may be escalated to something bigger, which is what you're having right now, which is our current hot topic in the news. It does not mean that this committee is going to operate like a CC or OVE. That's what I'm explaining to you all. I am not trying to minimize the importance of any MP's comments here today, but what I am trying to explain to all of us is that the starting point for our work in this committee is from the General Audit Chamber reports. So if we're going to move from eliminating having the General Audit Chamber come in to give us an overview of the review of allocation of motor vehicle tax revenues, then we become nothing else except a CC, and we move away from the purpose of this committee, which is very specific audit-related country expenditures. So I am not trying to minimize anything that the MPs have said, which is why my suggestion, once again, will be, if we need to discuss this in greater detail based on the reports that we have from the General Audit Chamber, then we can do that in a separate CLU meeting. If we want to come up with questions from what was said by MP Westcott Williams, MP Irian, and MP Lacruz, then we can decide that here today, that we're going to put those in a letter. From that letter that goes from the CLU committee, which is Country Expenditures Committee, if we do not receive what we need as a country expenditure specific committee, then we have the means to either bring in the minister or the members of parliament know their rights to call a CC or a OVE if that is necessary. Once again, respectfully, I do not want to turn this committee of country expenditures into a central committee meeting. I need to keep this committee very specific to the nature of it, which is based on the General Audit Chamber reports. So I want to make that very clear. I'm not trying to minimize any MP's role here or authority, but we are a specific committee. I am trying to be very specific, especially because of the background. So based on that, I would like to look at the members of this committee, if anyone disagrees with sending a list of questions that we all can agree on. Before the committee members vote, MP Irian, you have the floor.
That hurts a little bit. So to summarize your point regarding the Committee of Country Expenditures, you're saying there's levels to this, so you want the committee to be on another level of the others, and which and a lighter approach. Can I suggest to the committee members that maybe we set a deadline, and if I may participate in the questions, that we set a deadline maybe Thursday, that we compile the questions between today and Thursday, and that's our cutoff deadline, Thursday, maybe 2 o'clock. And those would then be the questions that we send to the Minister of Finance and Vrami regarding this topic.
Thank you, MP Irian. Based on the fact that this is a very lively conversation that I very much appreciate, that I would suggest that all of the questions that the persons in this meeting today would like to ask come by Thursday. So in 2 days, by end of day Thursday, to be fair. And then what we will do then is then combine those. Obviously, we'll be in communication with all the persons present here today, and then the drafted letter would be shared so that you can all approve by email before we send it out via the proper channels. But I hope I have made myself very clear with the way of working of this committee. If we're going to level up the way that we work so that the public understands what we do based on a high council such as the General Audit Chamber and what they do, we have to be very specific with our work rather than calling in ministers without using the very, very strong information that we have to hold them accountable. And that's part of what I wanted to explain to the members here today and non-members of the committee, because the way that we work is going to change. And it's going to be strengthened by what we have, as I've always had there, with the participation of the members being very specific using the reports that a team works very hard on for us to work with. So now that we have passed over that topic, I see that the remaining suggestions of the combination of everything else is still holds, so it's still applicable. So again, just to review here now before we close off, the financial statements 2022 will be a standalone meeting. We have eliminated the review of allocation of motor vehicle tax revenues, the review audit, to be called separately because of the fact that we are now decided today that we're going to send an email to the minister. And in the email communication that we have, we will also include a deadline for the minister. I think initially we just called off 2 weeks, but we will do that via email. And then we're keeping the performance audits of the report on the building permit process, protection of personal data, and the reliability of official statistics as one topic to invite the General Audit Chamber with. And then all the remaining items are the new sort of reports that are coming from the General Audit Chamber, the assessment of St. Martin's climate response, the policy on parliamentary requests to conduct inquiries, and the progress meter. Before I do that last combination because we have the audit by itself of the government office housing policy, I would like to then bring that in with the remaining meeting requests to the audit chamber, because then it stands on its own, and I don't think that it's sufficient enough on its own or long enough on its own in details for us to actually have a completely separate meeting for review audits. And then lastly, we have the audit of public sector travel and parliamentary membership, as well as the medical assistance under pressure management, communication, and compliance audit, that those are going to be the last combined items suggested for a meeting from the audit chamber. Is that okay? My members are so awesome. All right, so we agreed that this approach will be communicated to the General Audit Chamber. Thank you, members, for your participation and commentary. We have, and your understanding of how we are going to proceed with this Committee of Country Expenditures moving forward. We have come to the end of discussions on this topic. Members of Parliament, I would like to thank you all for your participation, and I hereby close this meeting.